Monday of every month. What we focus on typically is issues that concern the people, whether it's town issues, county issues, state issues, or federal issues. So we kind of have, frequently it's an open forum where we discuss issues, but then we sometimes pinpoint particular topics and discuss those. You see the mission statement here if you want to read it. I'm not going to go through it, but really what this is all about is constituents, which is all of you here, really kind of taking back some control. We're calling our own meetings, and this TeamWatch is actually statewide. I work with a number, we work with, I shouldn't say I, with a number of individuals statewide that are calling meetings with, for instance, just like this, where the citizens call the meeting. Tom Reed, over in, towards the Corning area, over in Rochester, Marie Burkle, Congressman both, where they're calling, the citizens are calling meetings and holding town halls and facilitating them just like this, where, for instance, last week we had the school board here. We have some, strong interest regarding Proposition 1, Proposition 2, which is being voted on the 20th of December. Hopefully everybody's aware of that. And at the end of today's meeting, we'll actually discuss how that meeting went and go over the meeting minutes that occurred. But once again, it was constituents. We brought them in for 2 hours, literally, had a lot of good questions. Probably one of the better grillings that they've gone through in the process. And that's also what we wanted to do today. And it's really about really getting down to what's going on and how is it being done, why is it being done, and really having a good understanding so we're fully informed and creating transparency in the process. And I think last week everybody, including Robert Christman, got a lot out of the process, and I think we're going to have that as well today. So I'm just going to hit a couple of PowerPoints, and I got to trade PCs here, so be patient. Sorry. So there's a couple of things that we want to do. We do want to just initially, we're going to be using the cards for questions. Anyone that doesn't have a pen, if you could raise your hand, we'll send a writing utensil over your way. So we're going to be using cards initially for the discussion. We want it to stay calm. The walls are very thin. We don't want to be disruptive to the library. However, towards the end of the process, we are going to say, open up the floor to any real burning issues that you feel through that exchange, which sometimes can be a little bit inhibiting. We want to make sure that if you have a burning concern, you don't feel like it was answered properly or appropriately through the process, that we give you the opportunity to also speak up and discuss that further. So we'll provide sufficient time to answer, hopefully, everybody's questions. We did that last week. I think we'll do that this week as well. And just in that process, in terms of control, I have PowerPoint on it, but I'll just speak to it. We want the crowd not to shout out a question. We want you to write it down. We'll have people, Sandy, Kathy, and others, if you could just bring the questions up to me. I'll be asking the questions, and then I will do some follow-up as well. If you feel like it wasn't answered fully, then do submit it again. And like I said, if you're in the process, if you really feel something hasn't been, or you feel that the card just isn't the way that it's going to work, to convey your concern, save it to the very end, and then we'll open it up for final discussion and any really burning issues you really want to ask. Focused on the assessment process. We're not going to stray off that topic right now. We're going to really focus on the assessment process, and that's what we want to discuss. So I'm asking the crowd not to shout out a question, but I'm also asking the town board and the assessor not to answer questions that are shouted out, just to maintain control at the beginning of the process. And with that, I'm going to trade PCs here. Turn it over to, actually, right here. Just a second here, everybody. Just find the slideshow here. just to set it up, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Judy Tafelsky,
Very good.
and I'll run the PowerPoint. And just in terms of the presentation, she's going to go through the entire presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers through the card process.
Okay.
Thanks, Judy.
I see a lot of new faces that weren't here at the last meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to at least start some understanding for you. The town has decided to do the reval because it's been since 1986, since it's been done. And properties have, the market has changed. We'll start with the first slide, tax versus assessment. Property owners often confuse property taxes and assessments. And that happens all the time. For instance, taxpayers attempt to grieve their taxes. You want to grieve your assessments, not your taxes. When we're putting a value on a property, it's the market that's telling us what that property is worth. The taxes enter in, but they enter in at a later date. The assessments, not taxes, are determined by the local assessors. The taxes are determined by the municipalities, by the school board. They decide how much they need to run the school, pay the teachers, and keep all the services in order. Same with the town and county. That's how you come up with your budget. That's how you come up with your levy, shall we say. They take all the revenues that come in, sales tax, any state aids, what else comes into play there? Special districts. They subtract that from the initial figure that they get. There you have your tax levy. That's what's distributed against the value of people's property. That's how you get to the tax rate. The next slide is, can your assessments increase and taxes decrease? Yes, they can. Scenarios on the following slide will determine that. This slide didn't come up. I've got a handout for this, and it'll give you scenarios, and that handout's on the back table. Let's see. I can't see this. That's a comparison from last year for the three different, for when it's going to go up, when it'll stay the same, and when it'll be increased. Or decreased, I should say.
Judy, do you want one of those to speak to, or do you want to do that later?
Well, we can take care of that later, I think.
Okay.
How the tax levy is established. The tax levy is established as follows. Taxing jurisdictions, school district, municipality, county, special districts, develop and adopt a budget. Taxing jurisdiction determines revenue from all sources. This is what I was speaking to before. Other than just property taxes. That's the state aid, the sales tax, user fees, fund balance. They subtract that from their initial figure, and that's how you get the tax levy. And that's the amount that needs to get raised through property tax. Tax levy equals the budget minus the revenues. Now the tax rate is determined. Taxing jurisdiction divides the tax levy by the total taxable assessed value of all property in the jurisdiction. Because the tax rates are generally expressed as rate per thousand, taxable assessed value of the product is multiplied by 1,000. Assessments in the jurisdiction. For example, we have town A on the next slide. Town A's tax levy equals $2 million. The town's total assessed value is $40 million. Tax rate, you do the math, $2 million divided by 40,000 is $50 per 1,000 of taxable assessed value. I have an example. Everybody wants to know, how is this reval going to affect me? How is this going to affect my property, my tax dollars? So the example that I have on the next slide is just a generic house, generic property in Falconwood. Now, at today's rate, here we have, today's assessed value is $43,300. Now, to follow along with the math, that's $43,400 is what I used. Subtract the star. This is the taxable amount. This is the taxable amount for star purposes. The school tax rate is $39.84. This is what the school tax bill becomes. On the other side is the county. The tax rate is $18.72 with no exemptions. We add in a few dollars for the special districts, which I don't have an exact figure on. Every special district is on a different value. Some are on land value only, some are on total value, garbage is a flat rate. So we come up with the county tax, right here. Add them together, $22.85. Now, New York State says that same house at full value is worth $93,300. That's the variable we have here. In this neighborhood, it could be that, it could be 110, it could be 118. When you do the full value with the new math, the star is now worth the $30,000. That brings the taxable amount down to $63. The new tax rate for school is $18.52. Virtually the same tax bill, and the same on the county side. This is the variable, the $93,000, because in that neighborhood, I have properties that have sold for $126. That would cause the rates to go up, or the tax bill to go up. But as it stands, that's the only thing I have to work with right now, is what New York State has given us on the file, that full value, excuse me, tax rate. Okay, excuse me. Does that make sense to people? No?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, the star now, is that only on your primary?
Yes, and only on the school.
So that penalizes a person who is, let's say, improving homes and renting to people.
Does it penalize them? I don't know that I would use that word.
You won't get that star exemption.
Well, the star is for your primary residence, not for income property.
So straight across the board, anybody in the business of renting properties is going to not see that numerical change according to the new math.
Correct.
Pretty big disadvantage.
Would you have had it in the old system anyway? No.
What do you mean? No.
No, I think that's the clarification. That fact doesn't change.
You wouldn't have had, you don't have star on your rentals now.
Right.
If your valuation goes to 93, you don't subtract the 30.
But the tax rate has dropped.
Okay.
Yes,
How do
sir.
you get a star if you're not 65?
Star is school tax relief. Anybody who owns a property and lives there is, if you fill out the application and you make less than $500,000 a year, you will receive the star exemption. And then the star for over 65 is for older people. And income generated also. Okay, what are we next on? The change, reassessment on all homes on the island in 2012. We would do the work this coming up year, the impact you would see on your 2013 tax bill. People have, this is the one, a misconception for some people is that this is just a way for the town to raise taxes. People's tax bills will change, but the levy is not changing. The tax levy that they had to raise last year is the same as this year. Is that correct? Okay, so that we're working with the same numbers from last year as this year. It's just a difference in redistribution. Okay.
Hi.
Now the people who have been in their homes the longest, my neighborhood where I live, St. George, I've been for 17 years. My property is definitely worth now more than it was worth when I bought the property. So yes, my taxes are going up. Yes, sir.
How do you know that?
How do I know that?
Unless you sell.
Because of what's happening in my neighborhood.
I know, I
What
didn't
the
say
market's
anything,
making.
but you just said a house in the corner, probably, I would say we're 225, sold for 165.
On the corner of
Sandy Beach and Autumn.
the Sandy Beach and Autumnwood. I'm on the other side of Sandy Beach. That's the neighborhood that I was referring to. Your neighborhood's a little bit different than mine.
But you're saying it's worth more.
My
The
house
money you work
is,
with, you can sell it for.
that's true.
So if you can't
That
sell
is
it
true.
for about 100,000, it ain't worth pot to pee in.
Now, throughout this process, just so everyone is aware, and this goes for the town board members, it goes for our assessment review members, everybody has the right and the option, and I strongly recommend it, that you request the informal review if you're unhappy with what the appraisers say that your property is worth. If you don't like what they have to tell you, even if they lower it, you have the right to take it further. Yes, sir.
We're talking about a situation being, at least what you're indicating, this first year is going to be revenue neutral. We have a process now which allows people that have and are not happy to due process or state their case.
Yes.
Why are we spending all this money for a revale? And the other thing I don't understand, I don't know whether you looked at today's Buffalo News or not, there were 2 properties sold on the paper that was listed on Grand Island. Other places sold a lot more. The taxes, everybody's gonna get bit by that. We don't need it. When does the town recognize the well is dry?
That,
When is it, when does the town say, this is, no, I've gotta put a new roof on my house. Where do I go to get the money? Who do I go to government and say, I need more money to do this?
So Dick, and I'm gonna just, I'm sorry, I'm gonna reinforce this, so we're not gonna answer that right now, but I think that's something that should go to the town board. And let's let Judy finish her presentation, sorry, but I think what we'll do is we'll have that be the first question that we'll have them answer after Judy's finished with her presentation.
Well, what you're talking about is 100% assessment. Please allow me to speak. I'm not going to get you problem. By going to 100% assessment, well, the tax levy does not change this year. It gives this town 100% opportunity in all subsequent years to change that tax levy and hit us all hard. Down the road, it may not happen today, but it'll happen down the road. Because we're getting a bigger dollar value. Because that percentage change, you can not figure out all you want, but if you change the dollar figure that we're going against, and that percentage bounces back, is what's going to hit us. While they may not need it today, who's to say they don't need it in 2 years?
So I'm gonna just answer that real quick, because I've done a lot of research on the tax cap. The tax cap is on the levy, which is a pot of money. You gotta view it as a pot of money, because that's really what the levy is. It's not your house plus this guy's house and everybody else's house added up to give you that pot. It's this pot. So the 2% tax cap is on that pot of money, which then, whether you have 100, I hope I'm not stealing any information here, whether you have a $100,000 house, or let me go back to the total properties on the island. If it's, let's say the total properties on the island are worth $100 million, this pot of money then gets spread over that $100 million. Now, let's say at the end of this, this process of reassessment, that goes from 100 to 120. There's a 20% increase in property values. This pot of money still hasn't changed. They're really, you got to view it as two separate entities. The levy is the revenue, or the revenue required to run the town. The assessment is the value, the total pot of value that this town owns, and that
But
then,
you're
that
assessing our
same
value
number.
for everyone else.
Just a minute, so just let me finish. So you take this pot and spread it over 120 instead of 100, the dollar amount of revenue that's then generated is still the same number. There's not even 1 penny more would be generated, provided then the town has the ability to either comply with the cap tax, which is 2% maximum increase year on year, or they can breach it, but I would hope, and I'm sure they'll talk about that, they can increase that tax. So sorry.
Right, but you're assessing for us, for everybody. It's not just for Grand Island. It's for our county. It's for everything. You guys do the assessment. They set the assessment for the value that it's at today, and we go to a full market value. I don't care if you can spend this any way you want. At the end of the day, it's going to all cost us more money down the road. Maybe not in this first year. I'll give you that. I'm sure everyone's intentions are genuine. If we're making ends meet as a town today, at the same numbers that we did in 1986, with all due respect, why are, to this gentleman's point over here, why are we spending all this time and money changing something like this? If it ain't broke, we'll fix it.
If the pot size isn't changing, who's going down? Sounds like a penalty against the middle class to me.
We don't need it.
Okay,
The
but
wealthy people are going to experience a break.
I know you want to hold on everything to the end, I respect that, but as we go forward, if we could get just one clarification for all of us, and it'd be very helpful. And maybe it's a very basic question. Could you give me a definition between assessment and market value?
right now, the assessment, the market
Not on
value.
Grand Island, but when we hire an independent contractor to do the assessment, what relation does that value, which we're calling assessment, have to market value? If we could define that as you go forward with your presentation, we could understand this a little bit better, I believe.
The market value, I think the best definition, and we do have a real property appraiser in here that is sat on the Amherst board, and he may be able to jump in and give us a hand with this. The market value is the price that somebody's willing to pay for the property. So the appraiser is going to analyze the market data for every neighborhood, for each individual area. They're going to do their comps, their comparables, and that's how, is my understanding, how they're going to come up with a value.
So in other words, assessment is an equal market value.
Yes.
So we can use those interchangeably.
Yes. Yes, Mr. McCann.
That providing that 100% assessment, right now, Grand Island is at what, 60?
46.5.
46, so the assessment is 46% of value, so assessment and market value are different figures, but they can calculate out to the same thing,
For
Right,
now.
right.
at any time, at any time.
Then why are we spending the money to do this?
I don't know that, I'm not on the.
Well, I'm telling you, why are we doing it? We're wasting our money and we're not putting any more
Okay,
money
so
forward.
with that, I'm gonna just reinforce, so Judy, I'm gonna ask you not to answer questions. We're gonna just, I'm sorry, we're just gonna try and maintain control for the first half. We will have questions and answers in a few minutes, trust me on this.
Yeah, we just talked on the handout anyway.
Let's just get through her presentation, give her the opportunity to speak. If you guys have questions, write them down and hand them up to us. Just be patient, I promise you, you will be happy at the end of the process. Just be patient, please. Go ahead, Judy.
The only other thing that is part of the process is, as per New York State requires, they want us to do this every 4 years. There is, what?
We'll all be moving.
Is that mandated by the state?
Seriously, my friends all say they're got it.
Is that a state mandate every 4 years?
If we're gonna start this
Well, we better not
process.
start it.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, you better not start it. Don't start something you can't stop.
Right on.
But if we do it every
Don't
4
start
years,
something you can't
then we
stop.
don't have this much disparity.
It ain't broke,
We won't
don't
have to
fix
rip
it.
that Band-Aid off.
But who's the disparity, who's it from? I think that's where I think all of us are in the same boat here. Everybody understands, there are times when there's gonna be a certain increase in cost. It happens, we all see that. Not everybody's disputing it. But I think what we're all disputing is, why are we going through a process to change something that's not broken? And subsequent to that, if we're gonna need to, once we start this ball rolling, start doing this every 4 years, what's the cost for this independent company to do the reassessment? How much does that cost? And do we get to bill New York State for the cost of that?
New York State offers $5 per parcel back in reimbursement for every year that you do the reassessment.
And what's the cost?
The cost is we don't have a definite, we don't have a contract
No, I
yet.
understand.
The span is $15 to $19 per parcel.
So who's paying for that?
I'm sorry?
Who's paying for the difference?
Who's paying for the difference?
Yes.
We are.
Why?
You don't even want it.
Why are we doing that?
We have, all right, what's the easiest way for me to say this? The values of the properties have increased in most cases.
So you want to raise the taxes, you want to raise the generate more income for the town.
We're not generating any more income for the
Then
town.
why are we doing it?
To make it a more fair process
Fair for who?
Right.
for
For who?
For
For
everybody.
who? Anybody that has a problem has a mechanism now to come before the board and resolve their issue. Why are we tinkering with that?
Because it's the right thing to do.
Who said it's the right thing to do? How many residents came to you and said they're not happy with the assessment they have now, they want their
We
property
have residents
reassessed?
that call the town board.
How many?
They don't call me.
Well, how many? You should find out. Do we have 2? Do we have 3? Or do we have half the residents on an island coming to you?
Why don't we do an island-wide mailing?
Wait a second. I can't stop you. The question came up. Let me finish this comment.
Okay, after that, we're gonna go to the cards. I'm sorry, we need to do that. And I'm gonna really enforce that, otherwise we're gonna have to call a timeout, so.
A good question was brought up about sending a mailing. I'm a retired federal agent. I worked with the government for over 30 years. I was assigned to the Justice Department where we did, along with other federal agencies and state agencies, political corruption. And there's always a motive behind something. Whether you want billing to go and there's money always involved.
So your question is?
What's the question?
What's your question?
The question is the reason why are we doing this?
Okay,
And I
so,
want to know the
that's the question.
now.
Okay.
And I think the town board should probably join in on this at this point, because,
And I would call on also, we have a member of our assessment board of review here tonight. It's a 5-member board who does the thing that this gentleman was referring to, if people have questions. Or they think, actually, if they have a challenge. But Judy did not mention how your assessment is done. And there was a question before about full value and appraisals versus assessments.
They
For
can't write
the
these
purposes of the
questions.
town, it's square footage and the selling price in your neighborhood. The problem that we're having right now, and it happens mainly in the newer neighborhoods, are people who say, why am I subsidizing people who haven't done something that required a building permit and then a certificate of occupancy that brings the assessment into the picture and it's raised, or they've done or they haven't sold their property. Property that's been sitting since 1986 and has not changed hands, and people who have not gotten building permits, either because they didn't do anything to their property or because they failed to do it, and there's a fair amount of that going on. Those people are riding under the radar screen, and their property has increased in value, and they are not in any way doing their fair share of the taxes. So it falls onto the people who are buying homes, the new people or the new purchasers. You don't have to be a new person to do that. You're just switching your property, because that provides an opportunity for the assessment to be looked at. Or if you make an improvement and get a certificate of, or a building permit and then a certificate of occupancy. In those two situations, your assessments are being raised. Some people are challenging, but that's not a complete picture. You might not even know to do it. And heck, if you're not paying your fair share, you're gonna just shut your mouth and ride along as you can go. And that's the problem. That's why the state is providing a way for the towns to keep it up. I never want our town to be in this position again, having not done a revale since 1986 and having this huge disparity. So the board has said for years, I mean, when I got on the board, it was 1994, and we were already 8 years into this current revale. The word then was, well, it's time. The board, for whatever reason, chose not to do it then, and then the Seneca Nation lawsuit hit. Well, that was a reason not to do it for several years, because it was just too big of an issue. It needs to get done, and if you can think of a fairer way to handle it, I think the board would be all ears. But right now, it's not fair, and that's the problem. And if you're a person, excuse me,
So we'll do questions, let's raise our hands if you want to speak.
I would encourage someone, and I don't want to put Mr. Meyer on the spot, but he has been a member of our Board of Assessment Review for several years. He approached me when I was a new councilwoman in the 90s and said, so Mary, when is this town board going to get going and get this revale done? We need it done. You need to think about fairness. That's the primary reason that the town board is taking this on.
Define fairness, Mary.
Yeah, right, who's complaining?
What do you mean by
Well, no,
fairness?
fairness is more than who's complaining. Some people don't know to complain. Fairness is
You must be happy with it then.
No, that's not necessarily true. And let me finish, please. Fairness is the assessed value spread over the amount of money that is required to run the town, the school, the county, whatever, based on the people you elect and charge with providing you services. I would encourage you to keep assessment on one side and taxes on the other. If you're concerned about taxes, watch the levy, watch what's being provided, complain if you don't like the services that are being provided, and provide the town board, in my case, or the school board, with areas that could be cut. More than happy to lower taxes, but taxes equal services. What stuff are we giving up? The town board welcomes, and I mean, Gary and Dick are also here tonight, and they can certainly chime in, but as a town board member for 18 years, I would welcome people's ideas for how to cut taxes, and I do hear a fair amount of that. But you have to think about services and taxes. What you want to get rid of is fine. It's kind of obviously a group idea about, I mean, some people don't think we should have garbage pickup, but a whole lot of people do. And we'll probably continue with that. Some towns operate their garbage in a way that you handle it yourself. So 6 or 8 or 10 garbage collectors could go down one street. Things like that. So you have to be a little bit careful about what you ask for. But fairness is the issue. I just want to make sure that people get that. Okay.
I was here in 1986 when I did the reassessment. I have two questions, two points. First of all, I was compared with houses in the neighborhood. My house was 1,300 square feet at the time. I was compared with 2,000 square foot homes all around the area. And the other thing was that the fairness of that assessment was so wrong, because I went in and talked to the gentleman who did it, and I said to him, he said, your house was built in 1958. I said, no, my house was not built in 1958, it was moved in 1958 off the river. And right on the deed in the corner, on the side, I pointed out to him, said the house is over 200 years old. It said, this house is very, very old. It was moved in 1958. I took the hand-fired doorknobs that had been put on this farmhouse. He wanted to buy them, but he wouldn't budge on the assessment.
Okay, now, I can see your point about being nervous. Now, two things, and Judy, you need to jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is, if someone was talking about your assessment, they shouldn't have really cared when your house was built. An appraiser might care about that, but because it's square footage and the selling prices of comparables in your neighborhood.
It's not a fair assessment, because some people have homes that are large but completely unremodeled and worth half of what, I mean, there's a home down the street. It's probably, I don't know how many square feet it has, but it has had to be completely gutted when the people bought it.
Now,
why aren't they looking, and why wouldn't they look at the age?
Okay, I think that stuff would get factored into the selling prices, because obviously the selling price of this.
Selling prices of the assessment.
No, it's not. The gutted house is certainly not gonna bring the same amount of money as some other same square footage but beautifully adorned, whatever, if somebody was into those hand-fired doorknobs or whatever that is. But that's an appraisal situation as far, and that would affect the selling price. For the assessor, for Judy's point of view, she's gonna get that through the selling prices, but she's looking at square footage and selling price.
And that's not
And that's
fair.
it. Well, no, assessment, it's not a fair appraisal, but it's a fair assessment. That's the rules that the state gives
market
us.
tells
Well,
us.
the rules
Yeah.
are, well, the rules aren't fair. I mean, that isn't fair for people, elderly people living in homes that haven't been able to remodel in years and years. Their house is not worth 1/5 or 1/2 or whatever of the next neighbor, and yet you're assessing these people at the same rate as a brand new home that's just been built, and people who are buying with incomes that are up to date. It's
So
not
the
fair.
age of the home is not factored into it?
I would never compare an existing home to a new build.
A 200-year-old
You
home,
try to
250 now,
Comparable, that's the selling price.
You get the problem of somebody who gets transferred here from New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Washington DC, and they're willing to pay $10,000 more for a house and still think they're going to heaven because they can pay cash for what they sold the house there for. Now you've got a house price here, a comparable that's selling for $10,000 more. That's the only house in the neighborhood that's going to sell like that.
So your concern is outliers, high-priced outliers?
That's, I mean, the problem is that this whole process is irredeemably flawed. And it comes back to the problem that the property tax has outlived its usefulness as a source of tax revenue. It just doesn't make sense anymore. The woman's got a house here that's got fancy doorknobs on, which is going to raise the prices of the value of the house.
200-year-old handmade doorknobs, they weren't valuable. What he thought they were.
They're going to raise the price of your house.
No,
And it's not real value.
all right, and to address your question, Jim, and that is a serious concern, that the whole property tax system has outused its usefulness. That may be true, but that is not, that needs to be taken to Albany, exactly, and I would encourage people to do that.
That's what we meet on a monthly basis.
Right.
The taxes are too high, we're renters in our own house.
Wow.
I mean, that's
Right,
the
that's
sad
a
part.
separate issue, but
That's a separate issue.
If all the houses in the neighborhood were for sale today, everybody moved out and decided to rebuy the houses, you would not get these higher prices. It's like with baseball, when they wanted their free agency. The owner said, okay, we're gonna make everybody a free agent this year, not just 3 or 4 players at a time, zero amount. Players union was utterly opposed to that, because if you had 32 third basemen out there, 32 teams bidding for them, guess what? You weren't gonna pay as high a price.
Supply and
And the
demand.
same thing is gonna happen with these home buyers. They're artificially high because a house goes on the market. And you're gonna find that, or so on the river too, because there's only so many of them.
That's right.
These things are gonna get bid up beyond what is the true value in a fluid market.
So you're expressing a concern. Do you have a question at all? No? But
But
I hear that.
I have a
I'm
question.
trying to do it in order, so it's just so you know.
The relationship between selling price and market value.
Give you an example. I just bought 2 properties in Falconwood 2 years ago, for $42,000 and $43,000 respectively. It was immediately assessed at $83,000 and $92,000, even though they sat at auction and only brought X amount of dollars. I was told, don't worry, Mr. Neuer, the equalization factor is going to compensate for that. Under this proposal, a house I buy for $42,000, I'm going to be taxed like it's a mint condition home for $90,000, and it's not. All I do is put a roof on it and paint it. That's not worth $50,000 to me. That's not why I bought it.
So you're saying in your particular situation, we've got to, I mean, I'll maybe speak to you separately and get your particulars. That sounds very unusual, but I don't know the system.
Are you talking about assessment and full, are you using them interchangeably
I'm talking
right
about
now?
the price I paid for the home,
Okay.
and what the town of Grand Island said it was worth. As it sat at auction, and anybody could have come and paid more for it, but they didn't.
It was a foreclosure?
No.
Value of a foreclosed property is not market value. It's a depressed value. What we're trying to do is to
It
make
was a
sure
HUD
that...
house. I don't know what a HUD house is. I don't believe it was a foreclosure.
That means HUD took it back. That was a foreclosure.
I mean, it sat on the market
HUD
off the
took it
tax
back. I
roll.
can't use that property for valuation.
Well, that's what I paid for it.
I understand that, but because it's not an arm's length sale, it doesn't count.
How can it not
For
count?
valuation purposes, only arm's length sales count for valuation purposes.
See,
For the
that's
same
problem
reason that
with
it's
Grand
still-
Island.
yeah.
You can't do comps on Grand Island because it's such a small area with so many different areas.
We have very many
With
neighborhoods.
the river, across the river, to do a comp on Grand Island is very, very, very difficult. And someone asked for, I'm sorry, if I could, someone asked for a solution, I haven't really thought about this, but we did say that we want to go to 100%. All right, the levy doesn't change, so the dollar amount is going to remain fixed. We're going to have to pay tax dollars to pay for reassessment by some third-party contractor. So why go through that? Go to 100%, divide it back so the levy stays the same, everybody's paying a lower rate, and if someone has a problem, do a grievance, and then don't pay our tax dollars to hire someone.
Hold on,
I
just
only have
a
2 people in our office. There's just myself and 1 clerk.
So just a minute, Judy.
It already says on the tax roll, if you got a $50,000 house and it's assessed, it's worth
I wish it was that easy,
$106,000 at 100%.
I do, I wish it was that easy, but you can look at any number of sales in our office. The full market that New York State says is the full market is not usually what the sale price is.
I would like to comment on that. You keep using that term, the full market, the market.
Yes.
15 years ago, people thought Beanie Babies was a great market to be in, and it's not. So you can't justifiably use a market valuation strategy for multiple properties in multiple different developments. Hell, I built a house here in 2009. On my street, houses went from anywhere built from 300,000 to 150,000, and they're all within 300 square feet of each other. Now you tell me, my house is on the lower end of that. How fair is that going to end up for some of us in my vote? And I'm going to turn to a little bit selfishly, but that's my arm. You can't use New York State's real property tax search program for that because not all of it is the same.
You're
And the
concerned about
market
the
will
bubble
only
price,
bear
right?
what you can bear. You can't, there is no one that should be a determining factor on the market itself, except for the person selling that piece of property. And until that day happens, you can't decide that. You can't go around and say, well, I think your house is worth 225 grand. Well, okay, I sell it tomorrow for $180, you give me the money back.
Yeah, write me the check, man.
No doubt.
I'll sell them all.
Judy, you said that we're going through a process of redistribution. Explain to me what redistribution means, because in my way of thinking, you're all talking about fairness, and to me, it is grossly unfair to the people of this county that have lived in this neighborhood. And you know, you can come out and levy us if our sidewalks are fixed, and fine us and make us change that, when in Amherst they don't have that. But we have to pay for your sidewalks. If there's something wrong with our house, you can come through, and don't tell me you don't, because you did it twice last year to me. And it was a hardship on me, but I got it done. Now you're telling me that there's an unfairness and that we need to pay more of our share. To me, I am appalled by this redistribution, and I want a definition. Thank you. Peggy.
How about an answer?
All right, I'm coming up
No
with one.
scholars.
The value of your property most likely has gone up from the time that you purchased the property.
Not since last year.
That's not so.
Not since last year.
First of all, but go ahead, okay, let's just say that that's true.
Okay.
Since I bought my house 10 years ago, the value has gone up.
Okay.
Okay, that also included the fact that if it has gone up, it is because I put siding on it, I fixed the roof, I fixed the sidewalks, I put in a new driveway. Those are the things I did to fix my house. Now, you're penalizing me for taking care of my home. To me, you want to talk about the new people that are coming in and how it's not fair to them. They have a choice. However, I've lived here, I work, I'm a single mom, I busted my tail, and I feel like I have done more than my share and paid it for longer. So you want to talk about redistributing, I just want to know, who are we redistributing to? New homeowners or older people? Where is this money going that we're redistributing?
It's the new homeowners, their tax bills are going to remain pretty much the same.
Who's going down?
Yeah.
We do have some neighborhoods where you can get a lot of house for not.
But who's
a
going
lot of
down?
money. I believe those are the neighborhoods that'll be going down.
I mean, my example,
In your
I'm penalized for fixing a property that, like she said, wasn't maintained properly. So here you got a person who doesn't maintain their property, it collapses in value. A person like me comes along, buys it, fixes it, puts it back on the tax rolls, and I'm just penalized. There's no, this doesn't make any sense to me why I'm doing this in this town. Why am I investing my time and energy here, okay, to be penalized?
So just so I understand, because I think that's a good question. So is the appearance and fix-up value of the house factored in, or is it truly the square foot plus the location relative to other properties nearby? How is that done?
In the case that he's speaking of, he's talking about HUD houses, first of all.
Right. But don't make it in a general
They
scope.
end up that way because they're neglected.
But yeah, just generally,
Go ahead,
what's
Mr. McKinney.
my question?
I might be able to answer
Okay.
some of these questions. I'm an appraiser, and I've been on assessment review board, and gentleman is correct here, and so are you. A lot of people are penalized for making their homes better. And unfortunately, that just happens. I mean, you put siding on it, you paint it, you update the kitchen, your value goes up, your taxes go up. Where somebody who, and I have seen homes in the best of neighborhoods that are disasters on the inside, their values go down, they pay less taxes for doing nothing. So you are being penalized for increasing the value of your house.
So what's my
It's
incentive?
definitely wrong. I mean, well, because the house is in lousy
Why can't you
condition.
do something the right way for once?
Well,
You know
again,
what I mean? Why can't we all get together and, like I said, make it right?
you're talking about a different way of raising taxes, and you're absolutely right. People who live in homes that you wouldn't put a dog in, live in there, and their values go down, they pay less taxes. Is that right? No, it
So I'm a
isn't.
little bit
But
confused though.
that's the way the system is right now.
We'll
where-
change it.
well,
That's
I-
redistribution
Well, again,
in
you're talking changing
an
the
unfair
laws.
way to me.
But you're absolutely
But you're
right.
changing the
Yeah.
laws too.
Yeah, you're
And we're
absolutely right.
changing our taxes now, and every 2 years, we're gonna have to pay to do this again and again, and all we're getting out of it is screwed.
But condition is one of the main things determining value of homes. Location, style, square foot of living area, amenities, condition.
But that's not
All-
what they're using.
Well, they
So
should
those
be.
are
That's-
factors.
In 2012, I should do nothing to my house and let it fall apart.
Well,
Let the grass overgrow, let the windows fall
the
out.
more it falls apart, the less value it is if your taxes go
That's what's
down.
happened to Buffalo.
No, definitely so, a lot of it.
Nobody fixed it.
It's an imperfect system that is right now.
Exactly, that's right.
Well,
Okay, one at a time, everybody, one at a
The
time.
system.
Can you whistle?
Yes, but that's the system the way it is right now. It should be something different, but it isn't. So what you have to do right now in determining value is take all those things into consideration. The condition, I find, is probably, next to location, the most important factor in determining value. absolutely determining value, condition.
I would think the market determines.
Well, that's,
How does a third party come in and say something?
no, wait, condition affects the market. I mean, if you have two
Not
homes.
necessarily.
Oh, that's what this,
Location's all about.
well, if, let's say two homes right next to each other.
Location.
Two homes right next to each other, identical.
Hey,
One
no
is
crosstalk,
in
just
condition,
listen here.
the other one is a mess.
Okay.
Which one's gonna sell for more?
Depends.
No, the one in better condition is gonna sell
Well,
for
not
more.
necessarily. Someone may be able to get into a location they might not normally be able to get into. They might see that dilapidation as an opportunity.
Again, which one's gonna sell for more? The one in better condition is gonna sell for more.
Well,
All the time. Condition, if they're exactly the same in every physical characteristic except condition, that condition will determine the market
okay, well,
value.
there's a difference there. Why do you tax the same?
They shouldn't be taxed.
Well, under this proposal, they will be.
No. The condition will determine the market value. That's where the appraiser comes in.
Which the taxes will be applied to.
And determine which one is worth more.
Hold on, one question at a time, please.
Basically, they can't go to every home. You have the appeal process.
So there's gonna be 10,000 people down there.
In Amherst, 3 years ago, we had 8,000 assessment challenges. 8,000.
That's gotta be a burden.
It was a nightmare. So we had 8,000 of them. When I was the chairman of the assessment review board, I was working 12, 15 hours a day for
One
3
last
weeks.
point. Amherst has shopping malls and movie theaters and all
Please.
But again, condition is a very, very important factor.
We're using square foot market price only.
Judy, I think
no,
people need to know how the assessors go around, because they don't go in your house.
Hold on one second, Sandy.
Right?
He's had his hand up for quite a
Yeah.
while. So Dana, go ahead.
Yes, with this, when they pick the people to go through and do the surveys and the assessments, the third party, is that a company that knows this area, or is somebody from out of state?
No, they won't be from out of state. We're sending our proposals to all local people.
Okay.
Are they
Local
local
contractors.
real estate people?
It will be, like Gar's done work
Companies
here on the
that do
island.
this.
Companies that do this in this area, that know this area, that
Yes.
know the history of this.
Yes.
Not somebody from.
Not from New York
Another
City.
question-
Not from New York City.
Hold on.
Other question quick, when the assessors come through on your property, what are they legally allowed to do?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When the assessors come on your property, what are they legally allowed to do?
I believe they will be looking from the right of way. I don't know that they're accessing the property.
I don't want to believe.
This,
What are they
I-
legally allowed to do?
we don't have a contractor yet, so I haven't even spoken to a contractor about the scope of work.
Good, let's
So,
not get one.
but that will be happening in the next couple of months.
They're legally not allowed to come in your house or asked to come in your house. They cannot go in your house.
I don't know that, I don't believe that they will be trying to.
Don't you think you
I
should
don't
look
think
at,
they
find out what that is before you?
That's gonna be part of
Sorry?
This is my question, this is my statement, my question.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people on the island won't know, and if somebody just goes, oh, can I come in and look around, and the tax assessor, they'll let them. And if they don't know, it's illegal for them to come in your house and look around your house. They can do square footage, and they can just look around the outside of your house. See if there's any other buildings from their survey. And if they're gonna do a drive-by survey to try to get everything done, that's not gonna be fair because of the 26 years that it passed.
I do not believe that they will be trying to access inside the house. I do not believe so. Most people are gone to work during the day anyway. These guys don't work at night.
Okay.
So that's a question though. What legally will they be allowed
That
to
is
do?
a question for the contractor to answer when we have the contractor in place. There will be multiple forms like this.
How could they assess your
I
house?
see you guys over here, but Dean's got the
And then
next
how can they
question.
get fair value on it, obviously, but it's illegal for them to fair value.
Hold on 1 minute,
It's about
Dean.
outside condition and local condition.
Okay, I had this written down.
Try.
I tried to play by the try.
Hey, everybody, please.
Try it, please.
Okay,
Respect everybody here.
by staying in the
Let
house
us
for a long time without a reassessment, number one, the longer-term residents do receive a discount, so to speak, on their property taxes. And I know from 23 years ago, I was the new guy, and I knew what everybody up and down the street was paying because I was in shock. I was from out of state. And, you know, I went to the board, and they're like, yeah, this is what everybody else is paying. So I was the new guy 23 years ago. Now I'm not anymore, okay? Now, there's some other consequences that I don't know if you've totally thought out, especially if you go to a 4-year thing. And I didn't have all this gray hair and I had a full head 23 years ago, okay? So now I'm starting to think about the next 23. Okay, these people that have been here forever, they've supported the community as a stable base for many, many years, okay? If you go to a reassessment, you will absolutely lose your base as these people retire, you know, and you know, right now I have no debt. My house is paid off in full. 65% of what I make goes to taxes, payroll taxes, insurances. You gotta have house insurance, you have to have car insurance. That's before I have, you know, a single bite of food or gas. And, you know, so.
Welcome to New York.
You know, my point is the unintended consequence is you're gonna lose these people, you know, like Dick Crawford that was born and raised here, you know, that played in the mud when he was a kid. You know, once you hit retirement and you're on fixed income, what are you gonna do?
1967 for me, I'll be gone.
This gentleman here?
You keep saying the value of your house is going up. You buy a house, the value actually keeps going down because it's getting older. The cost to, if somebody wants to buy it, is going up because the value of your money is going down. The number of dollars that that house can get is less in value than what that house cost in the first place. You're looking at something that's just, you're being pulled out of the air and inflating the price of the house. It's just not right. The people who come here and buy a house, their assessment should be set then and kept that way. People want to come here and buy a house and pay more for it, they're welcome to it. Their assessment should be set when they bought it at the price they paid for it.
Okay, so if we have somebody who has been living on, I'm sorry to pick on East River, I don't mean to make it like that. Somebody's been living on East River for 25 years. They paid $80,000 for that property and they're on the water. So they